Hello, all footy fans. Welcome to another episode of the Wild Doggies Fan podcast. If you're new here, please like the video, comment down below, subscribe, and stay tuned for all future videos. Also, please follow me on Instagram at the Wild Doggies Fan. I post a lot of content on there. I cover a lot of news, team lists, game day stuff, all things Bulldogs related. And yeah, we're going to dive straight into this episode. We're going to unpack round 27. We're then going to cover the first week of finals, and then we'll cover the news incidences that have happened over the weekend. Sorry about that. So let's move to the very first game on the Thursday night of round 27. We had the Broncos and Melbourne Storm up at Suncorp. Broncos got absolutely thrashed, 50 points to 12. Melbourne Storm put on an absolute masterclass over the Broncos. And from kickoff to full time, Melbourne just put the pressure on the Broncos. Broncos had a bit of a fight back at the start, not in terms of scoring points, but really just in terms of defense. But overall, Melbourne were just too strong for them. Will Warbrick, Jerome Hughes, each went over for a hat trick. You know, I think this was the first time Melbourne cracked 50 this year. First time Broncos concede 50 this year. I think it's a great summary of where both teams are at in terms of this year. One of them has locked up their mind at premiership. The other one has fallen out of finals and has had a huge fall from grace. If you think about it, Broncos were about 20 minutes away from getting a premiership to now not even making top 8. Actually, not even top 10. They came 12th. That's a huge shocker. And for me, Broncos have been one of the most disappointing teams this year. You look at their roster, you look at where they've been over the last year to see where they are now. It's a big fall from grace. And as for Melbourne, not much more to say. They're too classy. They're a real scary threat going into finals. And the fact they've guaranteed at most 2 home finals, that's scary. That is a real scary thought for the rest of the comp. But yeah, Melbourne just too classy for the Broncos. We then move on to the Friday night games. We first had the Spoon Bowl. West Tigers versus Parramatta Eels. This was at Campbelltown. Tigers, another team that got absolutely pumped. Parramatta win 60 points to 26. And this was what a Spoon Bowl was really what it should have been at the start. Tigers, they started really well in terms of actually scoring tries, but really both teams kept dropping the ball, conceding stupid penalties. It really was a Spoon Bowl at the start. There was a lot of hype going into this game, but Parramatta was just a bit too classy. I think they were just more desperate to not get the spoon compared to Tigers. And yeah, this officially means Tigers are now the 3-time wooden spoon holders. They've now won the spoon in 2022, 2023, and 2024. And that perfectly summarizes where the Tigers are at the moment. It perfectly showcases to everyone Tigers have a long way ahead of them before they are ever seen in finals again. It was real disappointing. I tipped the Tigers. I was really backing them to win this. I thought they had a chance. I thought surely they're more desperate to not win the spoon. They've got a lot more to play for. They've actually been a better team than Parramatta, in my opinion, this year. But unfortunately, they couldn't get the job done. Parramatta were just too classy in this game. Well, not really classy. They were just a better attacking team. Yeah, not much else to cover about that. Then we move on to the rivalry derby. Rabbitohs versus Roosters. This was at a core stadium. Chooks get the win 36 points to 28. The scoreboard really inflated how this game played out because Rabbitohs scored 3 tries in the last 10 minutes of the game. By that point, Roosters had taken their foot off the pedal. They put too much pressure. They were playing really well. It was. I think the absolute highlight of the match for me, and I know it was very, very early on in the game, but it was the try scored by the debutant in the game. Okay, I'm gonna try and pronounce his last name. Mark Nwanga Nase. Probably got that wrong. I have no idea. Anyway, he scored the first try of the game. It was an absolute beauty. kick from, I believe, Kiri right into his hands, puts the ball down to score. That was a great beginning, great opening debut try for Marky Mark. And yeah, the rest of the game kind of played out how I thought it would be. Roosters would just keep on scoring tries. Their wingers did most of the heavy work. Teddy got a double. And as for Rabbitohs, they were saying farewell to, Damien Cook, Thomas Burgess. They even let Thomas Burgess have a kick at conversion, which I thought that was really, really cool. But yeah, again, this loss, and Parramatta actually winning the Spoon Ball, actually plummeted Souths to 16th, which, I think that also kind of, once again, I think the bottom three teams, their scores over the weekend have kind of reflected where they are in the ladder. And as for the Roosters, they were really good. Not much else to cover for the Roosters. Again, it's their first, I think, you know what? No, it's their first game playing without Sam Walker, Brandon Smith, and Victor Radley. They looked good. Not as, I reckon if Walker was in this game, the score would have been a lot higher, a lot more inflated, but we'll see how that goes later on this week. Actually, we'll see that later on tonight. Actually, the time of this recording, in about 6 hours, will be kickoff for finals week 1. Anyway, moving on to the last Super Saturday of the year. Dragons versus Raiders at Australia Jubilee Stadium. Raiders get the job done, 26 points to 24. At halftime, the score was 24-10. Now, for this game, for me, when I was watching it, I was heading to a core stadium to watch the Doggies play. So I caught a bit of kickoff. I caught a bit of the first half. Caught the back end of the second half, or majority of the second half, as we were just waiting in the kennel for kickoff for the Bulldogs game. And Raiders, mate, where was this all year? These last 3 weeks. They've ended the year really strong with 3 consecutive wins, while Dragons ended the year with 3 consecutive losses. Dragons really could have been in the top 8 if they just got their shit together. If they just, I don't know, if they, instead of playing good in patches, they played good consistently, they probably would have been in the top 8. But Raiders, this gritty resilience footy that they've had these last 3 weeks, man, they could have won a fair few more games with this mentality, and I reckon they would have been top 8, but they got to be top 8 for about 24 hours until a different team took over, which we'll cover quite soon. Big Red, the Corey Horsburgh, the Big Red, scoring one of the funniest tries I've ever seen to win the game. Does a little grubber, perfectly bounces off of the Dragons player into his hands, and then he scores. Like, that's just pretty funny. Like, we're all going nuts in the kennel at Big Red scoring. And Dragons, really, they should have won this game as well. To be up 24-10 at half time, they should have applied the pressure, keep their foot going, and just score some more tries. But didn't come to fruition. It was Zach Lomax's last game as a Dragons player going to Para next year. So I want to wish him all the best for that. And yeah, it's 2 teams that could have made top 8 this year. Right. Now we move on to the 5:30 game. Bulldogs versus Cowboys at a core stadium. Cowboys absolutely humbled the Bulldogs, beating them 44 points to 6, nearly scoring 50 points. As you know, I always do a match deep dive for the Bulldogs games, so I won't go into too much detail right now. It's just disappointing. It really was. I think the best way to summarize this, we really saved the worst for last. We're going to move on. We'll go back to that game quite soon. The last game, I did not catch much of this game. I was kind of depressed after the Bulldogs game. Panthers get the win over the Gold Coast Titans, 18 points to 12. Bit of a shocker there wasn't 13 plus here. Panthers have kind of like hobbled their way into finals in a way. Like, yeah, they're winning their games, but mate, they haven't been convincing. They haven't been playing the kind of footy that we expect from the Panthers ever since the Cleary injury. They just haven't been the same. Normally, when they have injuries to Cleary or other players, they all kind of recover and they just keep marching and they keep playing good footy. But I don't know. It seems like this year they're just really fatigued. Edwards, I'm surprised he's still playing. I thought he looks really injured. I'm surprised he's still playing. Titans put up a really good fight. Jane Campbell scored a really great try. Not much else really to cover about this game. I didn't catch much of it. Still recovering from the Bulldogs game. Now we move on to not the last Sunday ticket, but the last double header on the Sunday. Manly and Sharks at 4 Pines Park. Manly lost 20 points to 40. Sharks solidified their spot in the top 4. And all I gotta say is, thank you, Cronulla. Thank you, Sharks. Because I'll put it into perspective. If Manly won this game, week 1 of finals, Bulldogs would be going to Brookie to versus Manly. And that is worst, as I said last week's episode, that would have been worst case scenario. That would have been an absolutely scary outcome. So thank you, Sharks, for putting this kind of scoreline on them and solidifying Bulldogs a home final for the first time in a long time. First time playing finals in 8 years, but I don't even know if we even hosted. No, we did. I don't think we even hosted our last finals game in 2016. So it's been a long time since we've had a finals home game. So thank you, Sharks. And they were really good. They were fantastic. Sorry about that. Sharks were just too good. Like, Nikora had an absolute blinder of a game. Sione Katoa had a really good game. Nico Hines had a somewhat good game. They all kind of put the pressure on Manly. You know, Ola Kawaitu got caught out of line a few times. It was also a really good game, honestly. I quite enjoyed it. Manly, they're never going to beat the Turbo allegations, where if Turbo's not playing, they just can't seem to play as good. They always seem to either lose or not be as good. It's really, really weird. Anyway, that's Manly, and yeah, we'll be seeing them on Sunday at 4:05 p.m. Moving on to what was the game of the round, Newcastle vs Dolphins at McDonald Jones Stadium. Newcastle got the win, 14 points to 6, and solidified their spot in the top 8. Dolphins were disappointing, to say the least. I thought after that last week against the Broncos, had their best win as a club ever in their 2 years. Then they kind of, I don't know, they really, that attacking flair that they had against the Broncos just kind of it dissipated. Newcastle were just the better defensive team. Really, Kalen Ponga was the better player. Ponga, he kind of put Newcastle on his back and was like, you know what, guys, I'm going to get us in the top 8. Watch this. You know, he was involved in pretty much every play that involved tries. He was involved. So for me, Newcastle, they were really good. Great defensively. Kalen Ponga was great attacking wise. It was a really good game. Great shootout. Had a bit of controversy, which we'll cover as our last segment for this week's episode. And yeah, that is a round 27 review done. We're now gonna quickly do the Bulldogs vs Cowboys match deep dive. God, this is gonna. I've been dreading this. This was an absolute shocker. I was gutted, to say the least. I was absolutely heartbroken at this result. You know, we had so much to play for. We had so much on the line. You know, we had the potential of playing a home final as in 5th position. We had 2 debutants debuting. We had so much to play for. It was our last home game of the regular season. And yeah, I was gutted by this loss. To me, this was a very shocking game. To have so much on the line and we dished up that really hurt. This was easily the worst performance of the year. This was a very, very rough watch. We're staying flat all game, and literally every step we took forward, we're taking like 2 steps back. It was really annoying to watch, in all honesty. And really, it wasn't like one single aspect that didn't work for us. It was our errors, our defense, our lack of attack. It just all killed us tonight. And the worst part is, Sutton didn't even do that much wrong. Yeah, he made like some shit calls here and there, but like overall, we were just not good enough. Pure as that. I can't even blame the ref for this one. We were just atrocious. I think one of the biggest takeaways of this game was how pivotal Matt Burton is to this team. Like, if we had a shocking set or like a really poor set, normally we'd have Birdo just do a big kick and kick the ball. It's like the opposition's 10 and we'd be sweet. But we had Hutcho and Sexton kicking. And this is not a diss on one of them, but the kicks just weren't good enough. They'd get the ball on their 30, their 20, they'd always catch it on the full, and they had no pressure on them. It was a shocking watch. I'm just glad we get our entire left edge back this week, well, nearly all of it. Yeah, but I think the biggest loss, I could not believe how big of a loss Matt Burton was. I knew, it'd be different without him, but my gosh. We lacked a lot of attacking creativity. We lacked a lot of... our kick returns weren't that good. And I also think it was such a poor choice to put two debutants and Drew Hutchison on the same side of the field. Like, two players who is their very first ever game, and then... I'm gonna start dissing Hutchison now. We put all of them on the same side of the field, and we expected... a good side. Like, that was where most of the tries were scored, through that side. And look, I hate to mention this, but I'm just gonna have to. I never want to see Hutcho in this side ever again. Sorry, this was his worst performance of the year by far. He, from the beginning, kept dropping the ball. He threw 2 intercept passes. That first one to Kyle Felt hurt. And then the fact that when he got benched in the second half, he's sitting there laughing and cracking jokes. That to me speaks volumes as how like poor of a player he is. Sorry, I wish him all the best, but my gosh, he was an absolute shocker. So many poor decisions, poor passes, poor kicks, missed a lot of tackles. It killed. He was absolutely terrible tonight. Now that I've finished bagging on the Bulldogs, because I hate doing this. I hate having to do this, but my gosh, back-to-back weeks we conceded a grand total of 78 points and we scored 28. That's a 50-point difference. We went from the number 1 defensive side to the third most defensive side, which is still good, but still, it was really disappointing. I'll being the Kennel, that hurt. It was rough. You know, last week I kept saying this was the loss we needed. This was the loss we needed. We're gonna learn from this, but to do it back-to-back weeks, that really that was rough. But you know, thankfully we get some troops back next week, and I've got a feeling we're gonna play a very different style of footy once come finals time, which is now. So overall, yeah, this was a poor performance from everyone. That we need a lot of fixes immediately for finals. However, I'm still very proud of this team, and I'm always going to be backing the Bulldogs on. No matter what, I always back the boys. To me, this game was also gut-wrenching. But, again, like last week, I'd rather it happen now than in finals. Still hurts, though. And you know what? I might as well give my credit to Cowboys. They were great. Attacking-wise, they were fantastic. Even defensive-wise, fantastic. Hill and Lukey had a great game. Kyle Felt had a great game. Val Holmes didn't miss a single kick and had that really good try where he had a little grubber and caught the ball and just pretty much did it all himself. Yeah, great game for Cowboys. Shit game from the Bulldogs. But we move on to next week, or we move on to now. My standout moments from the match, there was really only one I can really say was a standout moment. Toby Sexton's first try. He was really good. Well, that moment was really good. You know, seeing him score his first try of the year. You always like to see that stuff. Player of the match, there isn't really one. So I'm actually going to, instead of doing a player of the match this week, I'm going to do worst player of the match. And I'm going to give it to 2 people. I'm going to give it to Drew Hutchison. And I'm going to give it to Reed Marnie. Because 3 different occasions, he'd either throw a forward pass or drop the ball. He had an absolute shocker as well. So those 2 are my worst players of the match. So that's our Bulldogs vs Cowboys match deep dive done, because that was a rough. That was rough. Rough loss. But we keep moving forward. We move on to this week. New mindset. New playing. It's a new machine now. It's a different beast now in finals footy. However, we should quickly do our awards for round 27. Player of the round, I'm going to give to Jerome Hughes. He was absolutely fantastic. Scored a hat-trick, 150 run meters, scored me 187 Supercoach points. So, player of the round. Team of the round, I'm going to give it to... who should I give it to? You know what? Yeah, I'll give it to Cowboys. Everyone on that team was fantastic. That was probably their best game. That was their best performance. So their team of the round. They're my team of the round. Game of the round, I'm going to give it to Newcastle and Dolphins. Worst team of the round, I can't go past the Bulldogs, man. We were shocking. So probably the Bulldogs. Worst game of the round, though, I'm going to give it to... I'll give it to Panthers and Titans. I've said a lot this week. And there's a new awards segment as well. Try of the week. I'm going to give it to Big Corey Horsburgh, but the game-winning try, a little grubber, and then getting the ball. He's getting the ball back. So that was my try of the week. Now we can move on to a bit more of a more positive... Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me today. So now we move on to finals footy. I can't believe we're... the regular seasons are done now. We move on to finals. Only 8 teams remain. And 4 games only this week. So we'll do our team list, our tips, and anytime try scorers. And for this final series, we'll be picking 2 try scorers for each game, since there's only 4 games. And then 2 for 2 weeks, and then only 1. So we'll move on to the first game of finals footy, kicking off at 7:50 p.m. tonight on Friday the 13th. Up at Bluebet Stadium in Penrith, the Penrith Panthers take on the Sydney Roosters. Panthers are the favourites in this. So, we're going to go through each positional playlist, or player in the team list. At fullback, Dylan Edwards. On the wings, Sonia Taruva and Brian To'o. In the centres, Isaac Tango and Paul Alamotti. 5'8", Jerome Luai. At halfback, the return of the Iceman himself, Nathan Cleary, comes back into the side after missing about 4 weeks due to a shoulder injury. In the forward pack, Moses Leota, Mitch Kenny, James Fisher-Harris, Scott Sorensen, and Liam Martin. At lock, Isaiah Yeo. On the interchange, Lindsay Smith, Liam Henry, Luke Gardner, and Matthew Eisenhuth. For the Roosters, at fullback, James Tedesco. On the wings, we have the return of Daniel Tupou and Dominic Young. In the centres, Joseph Swali and Joseph Manu. At 5'8", Luke Curie. At halfback, Sanders Smith. In the forward pack, Spencer Leniu, Lindsay Collins, Connor Watson at hooker, Angus Crichton and Satili Tupanua at second row, Nat Butcher at lock. On the bench, Zach Docker-Clay, Nefadu White, Seo Wong, and Terrell May. Okay, for this game, this one is a bit of a tough one. You know, both teams have been kind of rough lately. This will be Panthers' first game back with Cleary. I think with him back, that's changing the momentum of this side. Again, in my opinion, I think the Roosters are going to go 2 straight games out of finals. I think without Sam Walker, they're losing so much of their attacking flair. If you look at how that Raiders game played out, they just look lost, confused. They don't know what to do. This is, to me, I'm backing Panthers. As much as I want to say 13 plus, I've got a feeling it's going to be 1-12. So I'm going to go Panthers 1-12. And for anytime try scorers, Brian To'o and Joseph Manu. Now we move on to the 2 games on the Saturday. We have the first place Melbourne Storm versus the 4th place Cronulla Sharks at Amy Park in Melbourne. For the Melbourne Storm, at fullback Ryan Pappenhausen returns. On the wings, Will Warbrick and Xavier Coates. In the centres, Jack Howarth and Nick Meaney. 5'8", Cameron Munster. At halfback, Jerome Hughes. In the forwards, Nelson Asafa-Solomona, Harry Grant at hooker, Josh King, Sean Bloor and Eli Katoa. Trent Liero at lock. On the bench, Tyron Wishart, Christian Welch, Tui Kamakamika and Alec McDonald. For the Sharkies, Will Kennedy at fullback, Sione Katoa and Ronaldo Mulatalo on the wings, Jesse Raymond and Kala Iro in the centres, Braden Trindle at 5'8", Nico Hines at halfback, Toby Rudolph and Oregon Kafusi in the forwards, Blake Brayley at hooker. For our second rowers, Bryden Nickora and Teague Wilton, Cameron McInnes at lock. On the bench, Daniel Atkinson, Jack Williams, Royce Hunt, and Sifasai Talakai. For this game, I don't know how this is going to play out. As we all know, earlier this year, Sharks had the huge upset win over Melbourne when they went on that huge run. But I think it's going to be a different ball game this time. Yes, Sharks have been playing somewhat good footy this year. I still think they're kind of pretenders, in my opinion. Out of all teams with top 4, they're the biggest pretenders. And for me, I think Melbourne are going to want to lock up a prelim final in Melbourne straight away. I can't see them not wanting to do that. Because they can get back-to-back week, well, not back-to-back, but they can get week 1 in Melbourne. If they win this week, they'll get another home game in Melbourne. So really, they don't have to leave Melbourne for this pretty much this entire final series until they have to go to the grand final at Accor Stadium. So for me, I'm going to be backing Melbourne here 1-12. For try scorers, Eli Katoa and Ronaldo Mulatalo. We move on to the Saturday night game. Up at Townsville, we have the Cowboys versus the Newcastle Knights at 7:50 p.m. For the Cowboys, Scott Drinkwater at fullback, Kyle Felt and Murray Taulangi on the wings, Val Holmes and Valame Valia in the centres. At 5'8", Tom Dearden. At halfback, Jake Clifford. In the forwards, Jordan McLean and Jason Tamalolo. Reece Robson comes in at hooker. Helam Lukey and Jeremiah Nana in the second row. Ruben Cotter at lock. For the bench, Sam McIntyre, Harrison Edwards, Fine Fuiaki and Griffin Neem. For the Newcastle Knights, Callum Ponga at fullback. Fletcher Sharp and Greg Marju on the wings. In the centres, Dan Gagai and Bradman Best. It should be noted that Bradman Best is most likely going to be ruled out for this game and will be replaced. At 5'8", Jack Cogger. At halfback, Phoenix Crossland. For the forwards, for the 2 props, Daniel Saifidi and Leo Thompson. Jaden Brayley at hooker. Tyson Frizzell, Dylan Lucas at second row, and Adam Elliott at lock. On the interchange, Tyson Gamble, Matt Croker, Jack Hetherington, and Brody Jones. It should also be noted that in the extended bench, Kai Pearce-Paul is named in the reserves, so keep an eye out for that. He may return from that horrible laceration injury that he suffered against the Rabbitohs. Now, for this game, I think Newcastle are going to be out first week. They had a very soft draw going into top 8. They versed Tigers, Souths, Titans. Like, they're all bottom 5. Can you really, they had a very, very soft draw going into this top 8. And then they had Dolphins. That was probably their best win going into the finals. So for me, with the attacking power that the Cowboys have with all their star players, I am backing the Cowboys here, and I'm going to back them 13+. I think they'll be the big win of the weekends. So Cowboys 13+ with Kyle Felt and Scott Drinkwater each to score. Won't be surprised if Kyle Felt bags a double, if not a hat-trick, because this may be his last game up at Townsville before he goes to Super League next year. Then we move on to what will be the game of the round. We have Bulldogs versus Manly Seagulls at 4:05 p.m. I've already got my tickets for this game. I am so excited. I cannot wait. So let's do the team list. For the Doggies, Connor Tracy at fullback, Jacob Carraz moves back onto the wing, and Jarrell Skelton replaces Josh Adokar on the wing, who has been stood down, or who he personally chose stood down after controversy, which I will be covering very soon. In the centers, Stephen Crichton and the return of Bronson Sherry. At 5'8", Matty Burton returns, who was sorely missed last week. Toby Sexton at halfback. Max King and Sam Hughes at prop. Reid Marnie at hooker. William Kika and Jacob Preston at second row. And Jamin Salmon at lock. For the interchange, Bailey Hayward, Curtis Moran, Harry Hayes and Josh Curran. For Manly, Tom Trbojevic returns from the AC shoulder joint injury. However, he will not be 100% match fit, so Bulldogs should be targeting him. Tommy Talau and Leo Hopewadi out on the wings. Tolu Kola and Ruben Garrick in the centres. Luke Brooks at 5'8". Delhi Cherry Longneck Evans at halfback. Taniela Paseka and Matthew Lodge at prop. Lachlan Croker at hooker. Hamale Olakawatu and Carl Lawton in the second row. And Jake Trbojevic at lock. For the bench, Ben Trbojevic, Josh Aloye, Ethan Bullymore and Nathan Brown. No surprise here, I will be back in the Bulldogs 1-12. I'm expecting a bounce back. I think my theory is they've been taking once they were guaranteed locked up into finals, they took a lot of pressure off their hard work ethic. They kind of dropped and they kind of took it a bit easier because they knew they were playing finals. They didn't want to risk any injuries, so they are going to want to bounce back. They're expecting about 50,000-60,000 on Sunday, including myself. Again, Sunday's going to be so special. Like, first time in 8 years of playing finals. So much to play for. So much on the line. I expect the Dogs to really stand up. I think they will be the better team. And I'll be backing my Doggies all the way. So yes, Bulldogs 1-12. For try scorers, Bronson Sherry and Hamale Olakawatu. Alright, so that's my team list. Tips in anytime try scorers for finals week 1. This is going to be a big week. A lot of teams have a lot to play for. And we'll quickly cover the Bulldogs' finals scenario moving forward. So, if they win this Sunday, which they probably will, they'll be playing the loser of Penrith and Roosters. Most likely Roosters. So we'll be making the trip to Allianz Stadium against the Roosters. We then win that game, we'll be versing the winner between Melbourne and Sharks. If it is Melbourne, we'll be playing Melbourne in Melbourne week 3. If not, we'll be versing the Sharks at Allianz Stadium week 3. We win that game, we will be versing the winner between Penrith and whoever wins between Cowboys, Newcastle, and then whoever wins between that game and Penrith. Bit confusing that part there, but pretty much it will be Penrith. It will be Bulldogs and Penrith grand final most likely, and the Doggies will win the comp. Here's the dream scenario. You never know what will happen. It's finals footy. It's a different ball game. But I expect the Doggies to stand up, make an effort out of this. The marketing team this week, the Bulldogs media team this week has been going off. They're making so many posts just daily, posting so much content about the Bulldogs and them preparing for finals. And it's also Reid Marnie's 150th game on Sunday. And last Sunday night, they posted a... This, I think it might be one of the most beautiful videos I've ever seen. It's like a little finals trailer for the Bulldogs, and to me that was absolutely it was a beautiful video, motivational. I can't wait. It got me so much more hyped for finals. I was already hyped, but this got me even more hyped. I can't wait. I'm so excited. The atmosphere is going to be electric. I'm so excited. I've said it about 1,000 times, but I'm losing sleep on this. I'm nervous as hell though, because this could go wrong and we could be out of finals and lose 3 games straight. But we never lose faith, Doggies fans. We always must keep our heads up. Always back the boys all the way. Always show them that we're here. We support them. We're proud of them. They've done so much this year. They've been so ahead of schedule. I could not be more proud of the Bulldogs and how much effort they put into this year. So, I'll be backing them all the way. Sunday is going to be something else. There is no Supercoach discussion this week as the Supercoach season has come to an end. So we move on to what the only 2 real news headlines to talk about for this week. First one is the Josh Adokar incidents, the failed drug test, and there's been mass confusion around this whole scenario. Even now, there's still so much confusion. So this is based off what I understand, or what I've pieced together. I could be very wrong on this. If I am, please let me know in the comments. So from my understanding, on Friday night, after doing the captain's run, Adokar went to watch the Rabbitohs and Roosters game at Accor Stadium. He then went to a convenience store, I believe, where he was pulled over to do a random drug test by police. The first test they did on him apparently came back positive. However, based on history, these tests can be rather inconclusive. So instead, they did a second test, which has not been yet revealed to be positive or negative. There was then an emergency incident which forced the police to let go Adokar. They let him drive home. He then reported to the club the next day what happened, thinking there was no issues on this. In his mind, he believed it was negative. On Monday, then Gus Gould made a tweet out explaining Josh Adokar's innocence. Then the police reported that he actually came back positive for cocaine in the first test. That has now caused mass confusion. And so that has led to Josh Adokar deciding to stand down ahead of Sunday's clash. He will not be playing. Gerald Skelton will be taking his spot on the wing. And look, in my mind, he's innocent until proven guilty. He's been one of my absolute favorite players to watch even during the dark days of the last few years. He's been one of my favorite players to watch. I've got a bobblehead signed by him in my room. He's one of my favorites. I think he's such an entertaining player to watch. He brings such a positive mindset and mentality around the club. If it is positive, it will be so disappointing. I'll be devastated. However, in my mind, he's innocent until proven guilty. I stand by Josh Adokar. I believe he's innocent. Because to me, what makes no sense, if he truly was positive, why would they then let him go home and drive? Because I believe under protocol, if he was truly positive, they would have not let him drive home. That's where I'm the most confused by it. But we'll have to wait until the second test result. I think it's such bad timing as well. Right when Bulldogs are on the verge of playing finals for the first time in 8 years, we have this shit happen. I think it's just really devastating. I do think it's very mature of him to step down, to not play, to bring the media attention away from him, because he could be off his A game while he plays, and that could really impact his performance. We just don't, and how the team will perform. So I think he has acted on the best interest of the club to stand down. I commend him for that. Huge respect. And I do stand by Josh Adokar until he's proven guilty or innocent. Moving on to the last news headline for the week. Wayne Bennett had a lot to say regarding the bunker. After the controversy of a Trey Fuller try being disallowed because of a supposed obstruction, Wayne Bennett had a lot to say in the presser, saying things along the lines of getting rid of the bunker, inconsistent, and he was not happy. This obviously caused a lot of people to question the bunker, as they always will. There will always be questions around the bunker and how they should really fix this reffing system and how the bunker system should be fixed. Because logic should have prevailed and Trey Fuller's try should have been awarded, which would then take them into the lead, and that could have really altered the way the game played out. However, we'll never know, and instead it is Newcastle moving on to first week of finals instead of the Dolphins. That was probably the only really incident, or the only interesting incident happening in all the presses this week. And nothing really happened in the press conferences, unlike last week. So that was the only real incident. And I got to agree with Bennett. I think logic has really lost its way around the bunker, and everyone kind of follows the rulebook too much to a T. And I think it's so inconsistent. Too many people have too many different opinions, and it's always impacting games. I think that's a bit of an absurd. It's an absurd thing to happen, but fortunately, not much we can do about it. I do expect a major review of the bunker going into next year. I expect a lot to be reviewed regarding refereeing, the bunker system, because there's a lot of formal complaints going on this year. That's really all I can really cover about this little topic. So, yeah, that's really it for all the topics to cover this week in terms of news. It's finals this week. That's the only really big thing. That's it. 8 teams left. 4 weeks between now and in the Premiership. And for the Bulldogs, it's only 4 games between us and the Premiership. Alright, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Wild Doggies Fan podcast. If you're new here, please like the video, comment down below, subscribe, and stay tuned for all future videos. Also, please follow me on Instagram at the Wild Doggies Fan, where I post all sorts of content relating game day, edit videos, team list news, all the good stuff in between. Thank you everybody for listening to this episode. Big episode next week, covering everything that happens over the finals this weekend. And yeah, stay tuned everybody for another episode of the Wild Doggies Fan podcast.